In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to build and deploy a full app with Lovable, even if you've never written a single line of code. Now we're covering writing your first prompt, designing your app, setting up a real backend with Supabase for things like your database, authentication, file storage, server functions, AI features, taking payments, and then securing everything and deploying it live on a custom domain. Now, this is the only video that you need to go from zero to a working app on the internet, and I'm going to show you the one decision at the very beginning that if you get wrong, you can't change later, so make sure you stay tuned. Anyways, let's get into it and let's learn Lovable. So let's start with a quick overview of Lovable. Now, Lovable is an AI app builder, specifically an AI web app builder. What that means is that using natural language, you can talk to an AI model and it can generate a fully finished web application for you that's built with React, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all of this kind of stuff. So you don't need to know how to code. You don't even have to look at the code if you don't want to. You can just go to this little box, you can ask for something, and it will generate it for you. It's really good specifically for highly visual websites and things like landing pages where there's not a bunch of data, and that's what most people show you online. But in this video, I'm going to show you how we can actually add a full backend to Lovable so that we have a fully functioning web app that can have advanced logic, have users, have accounts, all of the things I mentioned in the intro. Okay, so that's kind of how Lovable works. Whether you're a beginner or advanced, you can get some use out of it. And if you are someone who does know how to code, you are able to take all of the code for this website, push it to GitHub, and just control it yourself. And typically that's what I'll do. I'll start with Lovable, build something, kind of get a solid base, and then take it into another platform that's a little bit more advanced and do all of the other tweaks. Anyways, let's quickly cover the pricing because that's important. Then we're going to go and build our first project. And also, I'll just note that Lovable recently pushed an update, which means that it actually builds server-side rendered applications. If you don't know what that means, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're a developer, that's actually really good news. It means the apps that you have are going to rank on Google and be more search engine optimized than they were before. Okay, so quickly from pricing, Lovable works on a credit system. You can use a free account. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And when you do that, you're going to get a few credits to start. Now, you'll run through these credits pretty quickly, but it is enough to build something basic. However, if you want to build something more complex, you can upgrade your account to something like Pro, Business, whatever, and you can choose the number of credits that you want to get per month. I believe you can also just buy additional credits. Now, you're going to see on my account that I have the free account, but I have a ton of credits. The reason I have so many is about a year ago, I did a partnership with Lovable and they gave me some. Now, this video is not sponsored by Lovable, but if you see me having all of these credits under the free account, that's why. So that's the pricing. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start building our first application. The way to do this is you're just going to go to the Lovable platform, make a free account, okay? You can make a new workspace if you want. I'm just going to go in my default one here, and we can go to projects, for example. You can see that I have a bunch of them here, and we can make a new one. So I'm going to make a new project by just pressing create project. It's going to bring us to a page here, and you'll see that we'll just see this kind of UI. Now from this user interface, we're just going to switch it into build mode to start. And what we want to do right away is we want to connect to a backend database. The reason this is a super important step and that you don't want to skip this is that you want to connect this to a more powerful database than the built-in one that Lovable has. Okay, so here's the context that's going to make this make sense. Now, whenever you're building any type of application, you have a front end and you have a back end. Now, the front end is the visual component that you can see. So it's the thing that you click around in, it's where you see a video or a photo or a header. It's what I'm looking at right now, right? Like this is the front end of Lovable. Now, most apps that you want to build also have a backend. Now, a backend is something that's invisible to the user. It's running in kind of a cloud or on some server. We don't really need to get into how that works, but the backend is responsible for all of the data of the application. So for example, storing that someone liked a post or populating your feed on Instagram or letting you sign in with your username and password. Now, the backend is something that needs to be secure, and the backend is really kind of the heart of the application, right? If the backend goes down, everything's going to break. So you need to have a really strong backend, and then you connect a front end to that to kind of display the information in the data or create or update or read or delete something. But that's the basic flow of a modern web application. You have the front end, which is what the user sees and interacts with, and you have the back end, which is really controlling everything and dealing with all of the data. Now, Lovable uses Supabase by default for the backend. This is a really great free backend that you can set up. However, you want to go a little bit of a step further here and create your own Supabase account that you connect to Lovable rather than it using what's called the Lovable Cloud. So let me show you what I mean. So from here, you're going to press this plus button before you do any prompts. You're going to go to databases, and what you're going to do is add a Supabase organization. Now this should be enabled by default for you, but if you don't see it, I believe on the left-hand side, you can find connectors. And if you go to connectors, you should see that you have Cloud, Supabase, and all these things enabled. If you don't, you can enable them. So you can just enable Supabase, you can enable Stripe, you can enable Shopify, and then this should show up for you. Now, the important distinction here is that if you don't do this, so if you don't click this button that we're about to press, what it's going to do is use this Lovable Cloud. Now, Lovable Cloud is effectively just Supabase, but it's in a Lovable's cloud environment, which means you don't have access to it. It's hosted by Lovable, and you can't move it or kind of use it for another application in the future. So what we want to do is create our own Supabase backend. This is a backend as a service from a company called Supabase. And then what we can do is connect that to Lovable and have Lovable control everything, but we also have our own control, and we can kind of export this out and use it somewhere else if we want. Now, massive shout out to Supabase for sponsoring today's video and reaching out to me to make me aware of these different features in Lovable, but don't worry, it's free to use and it works really well inside of this tool. So what we're going to do is press Add Supabase Organization. Now from here, you're going to have to make a free Supabase account. Again, you don't need to pay for this. You can use it for free. And then like Lovable, if you're creating a much larger production app, you can upgrade and get additional usage, more space in the database, etc. But by default, it's very good. So from here, what I'm going to do is just select an organization. If you don't have one, you're going to make a new organization, and then you can simply authorize Lovable to work here. Okay, so I'm going to authorize Lovable like so. Now in Supabase, you have organizations where you can store multiple projects, and then you have a project, right? So for this, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project in this organization, which will have its own database. So now that we've connected this, we're going to go to the databases. We're going to go to the one that we added, so demo YouTube, and I'm going to make a new project. Now, when I do that, it's going to bring me over here to Supabase. We have our organization. For the name, I'm just going to go with YT project or something. For the password, we can just generate one and then copy it so we don't forget. And we're going to enable automatic RLS and then everything else that we have here, okay? There's some advanced configuration as well if you want, but we're just going to leave all of these by default. Choose the region that's closest to you or where most of your users would be, and then just create this new Supabase project. Okay, so now that we've created the Supabase backend, what we can do is go back to Lovable. Now this dashboard we're going to want to keep open because this is where we can access everything like our users, our authentication, our storage, but the beauty is that Lovable can manage all of this for us, so we don't really need to touch anything here, but we do have the ability to if we want to, which is the flexibility that I'm trying to show you how to get. We also can add multiple different branches if we want to have like kind of different staging or development environments set up if we do something more advanced. Okay, so now from Lovable, we should be connected, but if we don't see that, we can go to databases, demo YouTube, and then the new project we created, so YT project. Now that we've kind of selected this database, it's going to tell Lovable, hey, we want to work here, and it's time to give our first prompt. Now, when we give our first prompt here, there's a particular structure that we typically should follow. Now, we want to start by describing what the application is, who's going to use it, specifically what we want Lovable to build, and then what we want Lovable not to build at this phase. We also can add our goal or objective for building the application, which will give it some important context for how it should make this. So what I'm going to do is just copy in a prompt that I have. We'll run through it and you'll see the structure I mean. Okay, so this is my first prompt. I want to build Feedback Hub, a feedback board app for product teams. Now, who's using it? A team admin creates a feedback board for their product, and users visit the board or post feedback and upvote ideas they agree with. Okay, what's the objective, right? Why do we want to build this? Well, we want to have boards, name, description, slug. We want to have feedback posts, and users will come later with real authentication. For now, I just want to build the UI structure. For pages, I want to have a public board view showing posts sorted by votes. You get the idea. I don't want to build things like comments, payments, or AI features right now. And for the design, I want clean, modern SaaS aesthetic. So you can see it's not following exactly what I mentioned, but generally speaking, we're talking about who's using it, kind of what we want to build, what the app's going to look like, and then giving it some general overall guidance. Now, if you don't want to write it out like this, you also can just voice dictate. This is typically what I would do. So I would just go to my computer and speak into it like this. And the tool that I use is something called Whisper Flow here. Very good for AI voice dictation. If you guys want to try it out, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Okay, so for now, we're going to press enter and we're just going to wait for this to start building. We'll get the first version and then we're going to iterate, and there's a lot of other features for me to show you. Okay, so the first prompt is finished. However, it says build unsuccessful and it's not showing me a preview of the application. So what I can do is just press this try to fix button, and Lovable should be able to automatically fix this for me because it will just show whatever the error was. You don't have to worry about what this is and fix it. Now, what we want to do quickly while it's doing that is just have a look at the user interface so we can understand the different features that we have. Now, first, you'll see this kind of like full screen mode button on the right-hand side. You also can kind of just drag from the right side, and you should be able to pop open this kind of side view where you have a lot more details. Now, in this side view, you should have a browser window, and this will be a preview of the application. So if there's an error, you can try again, you can go back to home, whatever, and it should show you the app once it's actually running, and you can directly refresh or change the pages up here based on the pages that exist. You also can pop this out and then just view it in your main browser rather than viewing it here. Okay, so you can see it just showed the UI now in its backup. Now also from this side, you'll have this preview button, you'll have files, and then you'll have more. So you'll see files if there's any files. You'll see code if you go to this code option where you can actually go and read and edit any of the code if you want to do that. And then you'll have more options like analytics, the cloud, right? Agent integrations, payments, connectors, SEO, all of this kind of stuff that we don't need to look at this second. So let's go back to the preview. Okay, so we've got the first version of our application, and what I want you to notice down here is that we have, I'm just going to bring it up here, this kind of like widget, right, that's on the screen. Now, this is a widget that will allow you to make small adjustments to the site by pressing different buttons. So for example, you can draw something, right? And I can draw around this and annotate and say, hey, change the color of this, right? Or I can add text and just directly modify this. So maybe I don't want it ships, I want it works or something. I can just adjust it right on the page and then send that back to Lovable to adjust the code. I also can select an element. So if I want to select a button or a component or, you know, like a panel here on the page, I can do that, and then it will reference that selection in the chat so I can tell it to do something with that. So for smaller edits, this is really good. And then you can also change the theme, right, to like dark mode, light mode, whatever, all of this kind of stuff for how it actually looks, shortcuts, all of that. Okay, so we're going to leave it in dark mode for right now and then just clear that. Now, to be honest with you, I don't really love the design that it's given me so far. It looks really generic. It looks like something that, you know, everyone vibe codes. So what I'm actually going to do now is use a skill in Lovable called redesign. Now, in Lovable, just like other AI tools, if you're familiar with this, they have things called skills. Skills are effectively prompts that can be reused multiple times and that kind of teach Lovable how to do something. You can actually build your own skills, but Lovable has some built-in skills that are worth knowing. So if you use a / on your keyboard, you'll see that we have an SEO review, video creator, skill creator, this is how you make your own skill, redesign, and then accessibility. Now I'm going to do /redesign, and I'm going to do a prompt. Say, I really don't like this design. It looks super generic. It looks like it was vibe coded. Let's go with something that's a lot more modern, that uses different typography, different text, different colors. And I want it to feel sleek and something that's like new, modern, and not something that you would see very often. Let's go with kind of abstract designs that you wouldn't commonly put on a landing page. Again, I'm just giving it kind of a vague prompt, but I want it to give me something else. So I'm going to do that with the redesign skill, and let's have this just rework everything, and hopefully we'll get a better result. And again, while we do that, I'll go over a few more features in the UI. So you'll notice there's this little history button here. Now this button is going to show you all of the different things that you've done, and it will allow you to actually revert back to it in case you made a mistake. So let's say that prompt I gave gives me a really bad result. Well, I can just go back to this first version and I can see exactly what it looks like and revert back. Okay, so that's history, and that's super useful. And you also notice the Lovable is now asking me for a color palette. So sometimes it's going to prompt you with questions. So let's just go with this first color palette that we have here. And for the text, let's go with this one. That looks good. For the design, let's go with, overlapping elements. Okay, cool. And what do we want here? Pick a palette. Okay, submit. Cool. So sometimes it will prompt you with that as well. And if you want it to prompt you, you can tell it, hey, ask me questions or give me options. And then that will trigger that kind of widget or UI element to appear. All right, so the redesign is done now. Looks significantly better in my opinion. I mean, probably not what I would go with, but works, whatever. So we'll stick with that for right now. Now, here's the deal, right? So built in, or I guess already, it's given me some kind of feedback boards. So if I click into some of them, you can see that we have like planned, in progress, open. I have the ability to like upvote these, although for some reason it's adding 2 votes when I vote on it. And we can go kind of into this admin mode and we can view these different boards and go back and edit them, make a new board, whatever, all of this kind of stuff. However, I want to show you that if I go to one of these boards and I add some feedback, so let's say, hello world, feedback, right? And then I submit this, you can see that it gets added, but if I refresh here, you'll notice that it disappears. The reason for that is that the back end of this application isn't set up yet. Okay, so we've created the project, but right now what we're viewing is just visuals. We're not actually connecting any data. We don't have any accounts to sign in, right? And this is just like a random website that anyone can go and mess with and nothing is going to be saved. So the next step is that we want to add authentication. This is the natural next step after you build kind of the base user interface. But before we do that, I'm going to switch over to the plan mode. Now, the reason I'm going to go to the plan mode is I'm about to make a relatively major change. Whenever you're going to make a major change or add a feature that's pretty complicated, you should ask Lovable to plan the implementation first by switching into plan mode and then reviewing what it's going to do. So let's start, and I'm going to give a prompt, and I'm showing you kind of how I would do it off the top of my head so you get an idea of the ways in which you can ask this. So first thing we want to ask for is authentication. Great, the website is looking good now. Next, I would like to add user authentication. Allow people to sign in using Google by using the Supabase database that I connected already. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to ask for. Now, you usually don't want to do too many asks in one, but I'm going to add one more and tell it to also set up the database schema so that it can start saving the records that we have. Now, if you don't know all of these terms, don't worry. You can just ask in a way that makes sense to you. I'm just a developer, so I'm using some terms that are a little bit more technical that are going to guide it a bit better. So for example, a database schema is kind of like a map of the database, different information that we need to store, what tables we're going to have, what info is going to be stored there. So if you use that word, the model or LLM is going to understand this a little bit better. I would also like you to set up the database schema for all of the stuff related to the feedback. So like the boards, upvoting, the actual feedback itself, and all of that. Okay, and then from here we should be good, so I'm going to press enter and it should set this up for us. Okay, now it's asking me a few questions here. I've answered a few of them already, which are straightforward, but what I'm going to do now is just go over this one because it's saying, hey, Google sign-in requires configuring the provider in your Supabase dashboard. Are you ready to handle that? So I'm going to say walk me through this, and if you don't know how to do something, just ask Lovable and it should tell you. Okay, so we're going to submit this, and in a minute it should tell us how we can enable this in Supabase because we're in the dashboard right for our project, and if we go to authentication, we should be able to enable the Google sign-in here. So let's wait for it to tell us what to do and then try it. Okay, so now we've got a plan. It's given me the plan here on what we need to do, and I can obviously look through this and make sure that it makes sense before I implement it and approve. Now notice that the first thing it tells me to do is to set up the Google services. So I'm just going to follow through with what it has here. It says go to console.googlecloud.com. Okay, let's go there and let's just open this in a new window so that we can see it. Okay, so we're here in Google Cloud. It says I need to make a new project or reuse one. So to do that, I can press this button and I can just make a new project. So let's go new project and call this Supabase or something. Okay, and then create. Now from the new project, it says go to API and services. Okay, so let's wait for that project to create first and then select it. Okay, so I'm in the project. I'm going to go to the navigation bar. I'm going to go to APIs and services and then OAuth consent screen. Okay, and it says fill the app name, the support email, and add your Supabase domain. Okay, so from here it says it's not configured, so I'm just going to go get started here. For the app name, you can just call this anything. I mean, what is it? Like, what are we calling this app though? Feedback board or something. So let's go feedback board. Okay, for the support email, I'll just go with the email here. Okay, for the audience, we're just going to go with external. For next, we're going to put in a contact email address. Okay, and then we're just going to agree to the services because we need an app before we can do the steps that it shares right here. Okay, so let's wait for that to finish, and then let's go to the OAuth consent screen. Okay, so the instructions are a little bit off, but fortunately I know how to do this. So what we're going to do is go to branding. From branding, it has some information like authorized domains, and it says we need to add this domain here under authorized domains. So we're going to do that. We're going to go to authorized domains, and we're just going to add that like so, and we should be good to go, and then just save that. Okay, then we're going to go back to APIs and services like it says. We're going to go to the credentials, and then we're going to create a new credential. Okay, so from here on the credentials page, we're going to create an OAuth client ID. So we're going to go OAuth client ID from up here, and then we are going to make this a web application. Okay, for the name, we can just call this Lovable or something. Doesn't matter. Okay, and then we're going to add the things that it says. So it says add the authorized JavaScript origin. So we're going to add this. Okay, like so. And does it say anything else? And eventually your published URL, that's later. Okay, and then authorize redirect URL, paste the callback URL shown in the next step. Okay, so we're gonna get that in a second. And then copy the client ID and the client secret. That says in the Supabase dashboard, we're gonna go authentication providers Google. Okay, so from authentication, sign in providers, we're gonna go here to where we see Google. From Google, it shows us a callback URL, so we're going to copy that. And then what does it say? We need to paste that in the authorized redirect URL. So let's paste that right here. Okay, and then what's the next step? Okay, and then next step, all right, let's go through this. So first, let's create this so that we have these values here. And okay, and now it gives us client ID and client secret, which we'll grab in a second. From here, we're going to enable sign in with Google. We're then going to copy our client ID and paste this here, and copy our client secret, which you don't want to share with anyone, and then paste right here. Okay, from there, we can go ahead and press on save. Okay, let's get rid of that. And we should have configured Google, and it looks like Google sign in is now enabled. Okay, and then it's giving me some other stuff here, but I don't think we actually need to complete that right now. If we do, we can do it later. But for now, we've done that, so we're just going to approve the plan and then let this kind of build it out, and we're going to test and see if the Google sign in works. Okay, now you'll notice that when it tries to modify the database, we can make this full screen for now, that it's going to ask us for permission. I'm just going to put always allow, so I don't need to keep accepting this, and just press allow, because what it will actually be able to do now is go into Supabase and actually make direct changes in our database, which is the reason why we've connected it. So we'll be able to see any of the calls and things that it's doing, storage, whatever, and go look at, for example, the table editor when it starts actually making those adjustments. So you can see that it's writing the schema right now. And if I go, you can see now we have boards, posts, profiles, user roles, votes, right? Some of it's not filled in because we don't have a bunch of data. But the point is you can see that it's created the full database for us, and we can now view it directly in Supabase. And because we've done it this way, if we wanted to then make another app in the future or use this database for something else, we can. It's not completely reliant on being connected to this Lovable project. Okay, so it looks like it's completed here. Let's try it now. Just refresh, and I'm going to go sign in because it's added this button, and let's try with Google. Okay, now the sign in button doesn't work in the preview here. That might happen when you're doing Google because it needs to do a pop-up. So what I did is just press this button to pop it out, and then you can see that I was able to sign in. So I signed in with my Google account here, so it can actually open the Google pop-in because sometimes it won't show it, based on because you're in that view. So anyways, now that we're here, what I can do is I can go view a board. So let's click into one. However, we're getting some errors. So I'm going to copy that so I can make it aware of that. Let's try to add something. Okay. Hello world, submit for publication. Okay, and then you can see that it pops up, and if I refresh, let's see if this is saved, and you can see that it's saved and we have this new thing. So at least the database is working. It's not perfect. We'd have to look through this and make sure. And if I try to go to admin, it says I can't go here. Okay, so if we go back, let's tell it to make us an admin because it says, hey, what we want to do is tell it our Google email, and then it will make us an admin. And I'm also going to say we have this error. So I'm going to say this is an error that popped up when I was voting. It's also kind of slow to vote. Okay, and then I'm going to say my email account with Google is, and I'll put my email. Okay, so I've submitted that. I'm just hiding my email. And then if we come back here and we refresh, let's see what we have. Just want to make sure that the data is updating here so we can kind of view it. Let's go to post, for example, and see if we can find our new post. Okay, so you can see our Hello World post is right here with our author, which was us. Okay, so it made me an admin. So if I go back to the admin page here, we can see when I refresh that it shows me the boards, and then I can view them. And I believe I can edit them. Yeah, so I can change the state, planned, in progress, planned, whatever. I don't see a delete button, so maybe we can ask it to do that. But point is that, I have that ability now. And if I go to the admin desk, you can see that I have the boards popping up. Okay, cool. Okay, so next thing I want to talk to you about security on these tables. So we're now at a point, right, where we have users, we have different data, users will be able to create data, update, whatever, and there's something in Supabase or in most databases called row level security, okay? If you go to any of the different database tables, let's zoom in a little bit here, that have been created, you'll be able to see this RLS policies thing. Now, this will be automatically created for you by Lovable and Supabase, and that's why we toggled it at the beginning, but it's something that you want to be aware of because this is how you safeguard your data. Okay, so if we look at the policies here, you can see that we have a name, so profiles are viewable by everyone, and then another one, users can update their own profile. It then shows the command and what this is applied to. Now, if you don't understand SQL, don't worry too much about this, but this is effectively guarding the data. So what this is saying is that, hey, any user is able to select this data. That effectively means view, okay? So they can view what board are we on here? I don't know what board it was like. Okay, so this is, sorry, the profiles board. And you'll see that if you click into one of these, it kind of shows you how this policy works. So this is just like a name that we can write. You can see that the command is select, and we say, okay, we want to make sure that any user is able to view any data of a user's profile. Nice. Then if we go to update, you can see that it says, hey, on public profiles, we're going to check if the current signed in user is the owner of this profile. If it is, we're going to allow them to update it. Again, you don't need to worry too much about this, but if you go to any of the database tables, you'll see that these things exist. And actually, you can view this kind of nice graphical interface as well. And you can see the row level security, which is effectively how you secure the data and control who can modify, delete, add, whatever. And you can make this more advanced and ask, Lovable to handle that for you. So just wanted to make you aware of that because that's a very important feature. Okay, so the next feature I want to look at here is real-time data. Now, this is something that Supabase has built in, which allows you to have live updating information across multiple pages. So for example, if someone's voting on something, you can see that vote appear in another window, or you can see it in real time. Now, in order to enable this, it's very easy. You can just ask Lovable and say, can you enable the real-time feature for voting on posts so that in real time, we're able to see this update using some kind of subscription. Do this in Supabase. So effectively just say, hey, real-time, Supabase, what you want to do, and it should be able to automatically handle that for you. And then if you go back to Supabase and you go to one of the tables, for example, you're actually able to press on the table and you can just enable the real-time feature. But again, we'd rather just have, Lovable do that for us. So you can see that if I'm in the table editor, right, and then I go here, I can enable real-time, right, and then that's a feature that will make this able to be subscribable, which means we can get these events in real time using something called WebSockets. Again, we don't need to understand what that is, but that's kind of how it works. And we're going to test this in a second by just opening this up in 2 pages, and we'll see if it updates in real time. When I do a vote, if on the other one it updates, but let's wait for this to finish. Okay, so I enabled the real-time feature. It said that it worked, so I'm going to test this now. So we see we have one that I voted on, and if I unvote it, it just does take a second, but you can see that it unvotes on the other page. So now we have the real-time feature enabled, and that is all working. Okay, cool. So let's continue here and move on to the next. So the next thing we want to do is add files. Now, right now we have normal data, right? Like textual data or profile data or numbers or whatever, but I actually want to add a file upload. So I want to allow users to be able to attach images or screenshots or something like that. So what I'm going to do is just ask this to Lovable. I want to enable file uploads so that when people submit feedback, they're able to attach files to that. Let's limit it to 3 files per feedback. Make sure that each file is no larger than 3 megabytes. And let's create a storage container inside of Supabase that can store all of these for us so we can view them in real time and see the preview on the web UI. Again, might sound technical, but all I'm saying is, hey, allow me to do this, file upload. In Supabase, there is a feature here. So if I go called storage, this is for larger pieces of storage. So files, PDFs, right, attachments, not just, normal textual data. They have other stuff like vector databases, S3, whatever, but we're just going to let it handle all of that for us so we can use that feature. Okay, so it looks like the storage is finished. We can test this out now. I'm just going to refresh and see if we can add something. So yeah, perfect. So I can attach a file. So let me just add a random image. Just going to do mine. Just go hello, test, submit for publication. And let's see if we can view the image when it pops up here. And it looks like it's going to give us a preview. Nice. Okay. And then we get my image. And if I click on it, we can view it full screen here. Sweet. So it looks like that's working. If we go back to Supabase and we go to storage, we should be able to see the new storage bucket, and then we should see the attachments in here. Okay, sweet. So I just clicked through and we can see the images here. It just takes a second to load. Nice. Okay, so we have images. Let's move on to the next feature. So the next feature we want to look at is edge functions. Now, edge functions are essentially backend operations that can run or be triggered based on some particular action. Now think of it like this. Let's say we want to run some kind of AI summary, or we want to get an AI response, or generate an image, or we need to actually do something that requires some kind of computational power on the backend. Well, in order to do that, we can create a function. This function is something that can be triggered. So for example, you press a button and the trigger will run and the function will occur, and then it can give us back some result. So what I want to do is create kind of an AI summary feature. So for example, if I go to the admin desk, you can see that there's a bunch of stuff here, right? And maybe I don't want to read through all of this. I just want to get a quick summary. Well, in order to generate that summary, we need to use like an AI model, like, OpenAI, GPT, whatever, and then we need some place to display it. So we'd have to like press a button, or maybe every week it will run automatically, which we can set up on like a scheduled task, and then it will give us that result. And in order to do that, you can use, again, it's called an edge function, which is built into Supabase. So what I'm going to do is just prompt this and you'll see how it works. Okay, so I'm going to ask something like this. I would like to create an AI feature. This is a feature where whenever I press a button, it can generate a full summary of all of the changes that have occurred on the boards that I see. So it can tell me anything that's actionable that I need to look at, if something's been upvoted a lot. I don't know exactly how we should build this, but I just want like an AI kind of summary feature. Build this out using an edge function in Supabase. Let's have it run every week automatically, but also let me trigger it manually by pressing a button from the admin panel. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm asking for. And then it's going to tell me probably if there's anything that I need to set up. So I'm also going to say, if you need anything from me, like an API key or some access for the AI feature, let me know, because I'm not really sure how it works. So again, like I don't even know exactly how this should work. So I'm just asking the model, hey, give me any instructions. And then once it does, I can just follow those. Okay, so it looks like it's created this for me. However, I wasn't seeing the button that says generate now, so I just told it to add that. But if we go back to Supabase and we go to edge functions, we should see that we have the board summary edge function, so we can actually view the code, right? See like exactly what's going to happen here. And in fact, what this is actually using is an API key that got added automatically to our Supabase project. If we go and we look under secrets, if I can find that. So if I go to secrets, actually, you'll see that there is this Lovable API key that automatically got inserted for us. This is an API key that actually connects to Google Gemini by default from Lovable, I think using some like AI credits from Lovable or something. So we don't need to, actually set anything up or use OpenAI or whatever. It will just work by default. Now, I still don't see this generate button on the admin page. There we go. Okay, so it just popped up and it says what changed, what you need to know. And then if I press generate now, hopefully it will give us the result. And if we want to see if this is working in the backend, we can go to our edge functions. Okay, and then we should be able to see a log of this being called as soon as this is triggered. And there we go. Okay, we get the result and it gave us the feedback. And if I go to the logs here, we can see that it just got called. So that was like a few seconds ago. And then we can click into it and we can see the details, the response, what actually happened, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So that's working. The AI feature is built. Now let's move to the next. Okay, so at this point, we've covered a lot of the main things that you would want to do with an application. The next things that I want to quickly cover here are more developer-focused features for those of you that are interested in building something serious. Now, first is GitHub. So I highly recommend that you actually take this project and connect it to GitHub. And in order to do that, you can press this plus button, press GitHub, and then you can connect it to your account. Now, as soon as you connect it to the GitHub account, you can actually export this to GitHub, which will allow you then to pull the code down, modify it in other places, and then Lovable can actually automatically pull the code or any changes you've made from the Git repo and update it on their side. So you can work in Lovable, you can work in your own repo. I'm not going to go through that whole feature, but I definitely recommend that you do add that. Now, beyond that, if you go to this knowledge tab here from the settings page, this is a place that you can add specific knowledge and kind of save information so that you always will have access to this whenever you're in the project. Think of it like an agents.md file if you've worked in something like Claude Code before. So if there's specific guidelines, tech stacks, styles, themes, whatever you want to use, you can put it inside of here. Okay. Next, let's have a quick look at different environments. Now, with these applications, a lot of times you do want to create what's called a dev environment, a staging environment, and a production environment. Now, this is a lot more complicated and not something that I really have time to cover in this video, but I'll mention it so you kind of know that it exists. Now, from Supabase here, you can create different branches which can kind of act like different environments. Now, right now you can see that I'm on a production environment, okay? But what I can do is make a new branch if I have the pro version of this, if you want to use that, and I can call this staging, or I can call it development, and this will allow me to have different versions of my project that I use for different life cycles of the project. So production is where my real user data lives. Staging is where I have effectively a clone of the production database that I test before I roll out a deployment and I actually deploy the full application. And then dev is where I do all of my testing testing, I break the database, I mess things up, etc. So it's typically a good idea to have at least 2 different branches or versions, especially as you build a larger application, so that while you're doing your development work and your testing, if you mess something up, it doesn't affect the real users. Because right now, the data that I have while I'm messing around with it in this Lovable UI is the same that my real users will have when I deploy this app. So just keep that in mind. And again, if you're a little bit more advanced, you're probably going to want to enable that. And with Lovable, you can set up this stuff as well and tell it, hey, I have these different environments, set it up so the deployment version has this, the development version has this, etc. And it will be able to do that for you. Okay, so another feature that I told you we would have a look at here was collecting payments. Now, in order to collect payments, you effectively just tell Lovable to set up stripes. You say, hey, can you set up stripes so I can collect payments, right? And then you just press enter and it will walk you through the full process. You're going to have to go to a Stripe dashboard, make an account, add the API keys. There's a few things you connect there, and then it will just build into your application automatically. It doesn't really make sense for this app, so we won't go through the whole process. But if you want payments, it's quite literally as easy as this, as long as Stripe is enabled, which I showed you at the beginning. So if you forget, you can go back to the main dashboard. You can go to connectors. From connectors, you can find Stripe, which should be enabled. And then you can just enable the connection, right? And you'll be able to use it. So let's go back to our project for now. Okay, so you can see that just saying, hey, do you want to enable this? And then I would just go, yes, enable it, and then we will be good to go. Okay, so I'm not going to do that, but that is how you would enable that feature. And then the very last thing I think that we need to cover here is the security scan and the deployment. Now you can see that there's a built-in security thing that Lovable recently added. It shows you different issues that you have, right? So you can see public can execute security definer, leaked password protection disabled, signed-in users can execute security definer functions that can be callable with this, and then you can just reference them and have it try to fix all of them by pressing this button, okay? Now if you want the deep scan, you have to upgrade to the Pro version, I'm pretty sure, and then I think you can use that. I don't know exactly how that works, but that's like a new thing that they added. So you should probably do that before you deploy the app, okay? And then from SEO and AI search, again, a lot of these are pro features, but you can kind of do this analysis because this is now server-side rendered to make it so that you get better results in search when this is deployed with Lovable. And then you have analytics that you can view once it's deployed. So what I'm going to do is just allow this now so it can do this lockdown thing that it wants. And we're going to look at the deployment. Okay, so how do we do this? Let's move this over here and you'll see that we have this publish button. Now, with this publish button, what we're able to do is just deploy this URL to a generated URL from Lovable. You can see it's mined, meld boards or something, or we can add our own custom domain if we're on the Pro account. So for now, if we're happy with this, we can just deploy it. It's going to be public, obviously, because we don't have this business account, and then anyone will be able to view and, mess with this application, and we can change all of the terms. So I'm just going to press continue for now and just publish it because I don't want to wait, but you guys get the idea. That's as easy as it is. Now, if you want to add your own custom domain, you have to upgrade the account, then you have to buy a domain. It will give you the instructions. It's very straightforward. You can connect it, and then no one will know that you built this with Lovable. Okay, so we can see that it is live now. So if I just go to the URL, you can see live URL. We can remove this Lovable tag thing, but for now it's there. And then we can just use the app as we normally would, right? And there we go. We have a full production app built in less than 1 hour using Lovable with a full backend. And if we hate Lovable and we want to move this somewhere else, well, we still have all of our data and our projects set up. So we can do that. Okay, guys. That is going to wrap up this video. This was a lot of recording from me, but I hope this was useful to you and taught you how to use Lovable, how to connect it to a real database, and how to build an app that's production ready in 2026 and beyond. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.